as I was finishing Basement, I was like, this is such a drag. Is this who I am as a person? Is this the kind of comics I want to make? And then I reconnected rereading the Carl Barks comics. It sort of lit that spark in me from when I was a kid. And I was like, I love these comics. They still are great, even reading them as an adult. I want to make comics like this. And so that was the direct inspiration for Isle of Elsi.
Hello, and welcome to the Ryan Claytor Patreon podcast. Today, I have creator and cartoonist extraordinaire Alec Longstreth, who is the comics creator of the unabashedly for kids comic Isle of Elsi, which just launched a Kickstarter for the third hardcover compilation. So if you search for Isle of Elsi on Kickstarter, you should find it, but I'll also include a direct link in the show notes of this episode as well. But before we get too far into that, Alec, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me back, Ryan. It's always fun chatting with you, and I'm excited to talk about Kickstarter strategy and all sorts of things today.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about you and your work and let people know about this currently running Kickstarter campaign for Isle of Elsi Book 3. I've got books 1 and 2 right here, which are amazing. And if anybody needs a recommendation, take it from me and my young son. We've both been big fans of it ever since it started, I think. We've been reading this for a long time, and I'm so excited to see another hardcover coming out. So I think people are in for a real treat. I'm assuming that you'll have all 3 hardcovers available if there's new folks to Isle of Elsi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the series, about the Kickstarter, what they can find there to start us off?
Yeah, so it's like a fun fantasy adventure. As Ryan mentioned, I just like every time I mention, I say 4 kids. That's just like that is my intended audience. There's lots of silly wordplay. It's never too violent or scary or anything. But I like to think a well-crafted comic could be enjoyed by anyone at any age. So, it's maybe for like a kid, like your son, who's not afraid to like go find the dictionary when they hit a word they don't know, or they could enjoy reading it with a parent or guardian and saying, "What does this mean?" For instance, the dragon character, Nogard the dragon, speaks in alliteration. So you'll have 15 words in a row that are all B words, and so to write that, you have to kind of do some verbal gymnastics to get an idea across. And then, the context clues of the comic will sort of help a kid that maybe doesn't know all those words understand what's going on. But so I think adults can enjoy it, but it's intended for kids. So, maybe a plot line or something, a parent might say, I see where this is going or whatever, but kids have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, so to your question about like new people, it's a little weird doing a Kickstarter for the third book in a series because, yeah, a lot of people might show up and go, this looks cool. What is this? So one thing I'm going to try on this campaign is I'm going to like deeply discount book 1. You'll be able to get a copy of book 1 for like $10. And that
What?
is just like a hardback book, 192 pages. That's a half off the cover price. And that's like, hi, are you new here? Jump in, grab the book. And then hopefully you read that, you love it, you take it home, you read it with your kids or whoever's in your life, and then you go, okay, wow, that was really fun. Now I know there's also book 2 and book 3 that are going to be out in the world. By the time that's shipped out to you and you read it, you can come back and order, book 2 and 3 traditionally from my website.
That's a crazy deal. I don't know how you're doing that, but
I ordered too
I
many of book 1 is mostly how
okay.
I'm doing it. So
Well,
I have
I
lots of
have
them.
book 1 and I can attest to the fact that it's a really incredible book. I just flipped through it on the video. If you are listening on audio, it's tons of full color comics pages, 192 pages of comics, and even like a glossary. And does this one have, yeah, it has some
There's like
process stuff in
bonus
the back.
comics in the
Yes.
back. Yeah.
Cool, cool. So, anyway, highest possible recommendation for me. I'm really looking forward to picking up book 3, even though, can we say this? It's already online for free
Yeah.
and available for everyone. I want my print copy, but if you want to try things out, you can go to isleofelsy.com to read some of this already.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the main things is with a kid's comic, the web is kind of a weird place to put it. I am a parent, you're a parent. We're not like, sure, go on the internet and like read whatever you want. Ryan and Owen, his son, have been reading it from day one, I think, in 2016. But that's been like a shared thing. And that's how I sort of would do a web comic with my kids too. It's like, let's do this together so that you're not clicking off to somewhere. We don't know what's going on. I think for kids, the best way to read a comic is in print. And so that's why I go through all the work to make these nice hardback, full color print editions of the books so that we can put them into young readers' hands. But yes, it does exist. So another thing is like if you're coming to the campaign and you're like, this looks cool, but whoa, getting all three books is kind of a big commitment financially, especially right now. Yes, you can go read them all for free. So you could literally, like, there's over 600 pages, I think, at this point. So you could go read all of those comics for free and just like see if you like them. I also have free ebooks. I am offering them for money on the Kickstarter because I need to raise some money to make this print edition. So I think the new book 3 ebook will be like $5. So people could just like grab that. International shipping is like bonkers right now. It costs more to ship the book overseas than it does to like buy the book. So that's also a great option for folks that or some other country somewhere else they want to read it, but they're like, oh my God, the book and the shipping is really adding up. You can get that ebook for $5 or go read it on the web for free. It's mostly just trying to get readers to check it out and enjoy it.
Yeah. Wow. You're blowing my mind with these prices, Alec. $5 for 192 pages of comics.
Well, the new book's 136 pages, but it's still a
Still,
lot of work. A
that's a
couple
lot of
years of work
comics.
for five
Yeah.
bucks. Yeah.
Uh, maybe maybe something more. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
Yeah. We're here. Ryan's going to try and talk to me. Ryan is also a Kickstarter master. I'm just going to mention it. But Elephant Eater has a new annual dispatch. It's like a newspaper format summary of all the cool projects that Ryan's been working on this year. So he's also doing a Kickstarter. So we may get a little in the weeds today, being like, $5, you're crazy. That ought to be $7 or whatever, or $10 or whatever you think it should be. But
Well,
yeah, I like to try and make stuff as accessible as possible. I think as a self-publisher, it's a lesson I learned early on. I did a book, Basewood, which was like an oversized hardback book. It was 9 inches by 12 inches, 216 pages, offset printed. Ryan's holding it up in the video. And I was able to put that at a $20 price point, which is even at the time, 10 years ago, was under what that type of book would cost if it was coming out from a traditional publisher, because I'm not paying staff, I'm not paying for an office, I'm not, trying to go through traditional means. I did a Kickstarter. I didn't even pay for the printing, right? Like the backers paid for the printing. So I'm able to sort of set price points lower. And I can't tell you how many shows I was at where someone walks up to the show, they look at Basewood and they go, oh my God, this looks amazing. They're holding it, feeling the texture, looking at the quality of the book. But in their mind, they're going, oh God, it's probably $35. And then they flip it over and go, $20. And then people like pull $20 out and slap it on the table. Sold. Oh my gosh, what a price point. So I feel like that's kind of one of the advantages I have, especially with inflation kicking in, tariffs kicking in, stuff getting more and more expensive. I'm trying to kind of go to like the price I would love to pay for a book. And being a self-publisher using Kickstarter allows me to do that.
yeah, that's the dream, to pull that price down so it's more accessible for folks. And if people know my work, which I'm guessing you do if you're listening to this podcast,
Yeah.
you know I'm a stickler for formatting and high quality books. And I want to give that seal of approval to Alec's work so far too, not only with Basewood, but also the couple editions of Isle of Elsi that I've mentioned already. They're offset printed on this lovely uncoated paper stock inside, beautiful colors. Alec is doing the whole thing himself, from writing, penciling, inking, coloring, lettering, everything. I was just talking with my young son the other day, and in advance of this interview, I'm like, what are some of the things that you like about Isle of Elsi? And I know this sounds funny, but one of the things he mentioned was the fact that the lettering is very clear. And
Oh.
I said, oh, well, what other lettering are you thinking about? And he's like, oh, he mentioned a couple cartoonists. He's like, I can read those, but they're a little more wobbly, a little less square. Like I can read
Oh.
Isle of Elsi very well. Speaking of which, we have a guest in our midst.
Oh. Hello. Hi, Owen. Owen is
So
joining us. We just mentioned you like 2 seconds ago. Your dad was like, oh, Owen said this thing, and then poof, here you are.
So I'm going to step away and give the headphones to Owen real quick so that he can jump in here and do some of this interview, okay?
All right,
All right.
cool. We are switching headphones here so that Owen can hear me. Owen, it's so good to see you. Your timing is amazing. Like 2 seconds ago, your dad said, I asked my son about Isle of Elsi, and he mentioned that he liked the lettering. And then you were like, hi, Dad. You popped up immediately after we said your name.
Yeah, I was just on a bike ride, so that was crazy timing.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're just about to start school as we're recording this, right? You're a couple days away?
yeah,
Yeah, last days of summer. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing some of your final days of summer to chat with me.
yeah. No worries. It's a great honor. So one of my questions for you about Isle of Elsie was, so what first inspired you to actually start doing comics in the first place? Like, just was it inspired, or did you just feel like, okay, I want to write comics?
Yeah, so I probably like you grew up reading comics. Your dad's a cartoonist, so I'm sure I can see behind you lots of comics. I'm sure your house is just full of comics. So I read comic books growing up, and my favorites were by a guy named Carl Barks, who invented Uncle Scrooge, if you know that character. And he drew Donald Duck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and all these adventures for about 25 years. And those were being reprinted when I was a kid, and so those were my favorite comics. And then as I grew up, I got into Bone and superhero comics for a little bit and graphic novels and Mouse and all these sorts of things. And when I drew my book Basewood, which we were just talking about a minute ago, it was really depressing and just like
Mm,
sort of a sad story if you've read that one, right? There's
yeah.
not like, there's no point in Basewood, I think, where someone would laugh. There's nothing like funny in it. And so as I was finishing Basewood, I was like, this is such a drag. Is this who I am as a person? Is this the kind of comics I want to make? And then I reconnected rereading the Carl Barks comics. They have these big, oversized hardback collections of his work. And when I reread those, it sort of lit that spark in me from when I was a kid. And I was like, I love these comics. They still are great, even reading them as an adult. And then I was like, I want to make comics like this. And so that was the direct inspiration for Isle of Elsie. So a term sometimes people use is Carl Barks is like my North Star for Isle of Elsie. And so I try to capture some of the humor, the sense of adventure, all that kind of stuff, but it's set in like a fantasy world. So that was the direct
Mm,
inspiration for Isle of Elsie.
nice. Another question I have is, what gave you the inspiration to write everything backwards? Like the last names of people are spelled backwards of names, and like just the name Isle of Elsie. Like I just
Yeah,
wonder where that came from.
yeah, it's so funny, Owen, because when I have it at a convention, when I'm at a show, a parent will look at it and they'll just be like, "Oh, okay, what is this? Isle of Elsie, blah blah blah," and they're reading it, and then their kid will go, "Elsie is Isle backwards. Look, it's reversed," and the parent will go, "Huh?" Like kids get it, but adults don't,
Yeah.
because I think adults are so like dead to language. They're just like, "Oh, I have to read my work email or whatever," and so they're not like paying attention. Whereas if you're a kid, let's say you're reading this at like when did you start reading Isle of Elsie? How old were you in 2016?
Let's see. So that was about 9 years ago. So three. I was three when I started
Yeah,
reading
so
that.
you're reading really young. So like maybe you weren't even quite reading yet. And so as you were reading it with your dad, you're discovering language. It's all new to you. You're figuring out like what are the letters. And so for kids, if you're like 6 or something, there's a moment where you go, "Oh my gosh, I get it." And so they're like looking at all the words. So yeah, the dragon, let's do the list. The dragon is Nogard.
Hmm.
The wizard is Drazu, right, which
Hmm.
is wizard backwards. And then the
Yeah.
hero, RJ Jr., do you know what that's called when a word is like reversible both directions?
No, but I know you can also do it with race car, but
Race
I don't know
car,
what it's
yeah.
called. Yeah.
So it's called a palindrome where it's the same read forwards to backwards. So his initials are J. It's Rex Jargon. And
Mhm.
then he's a junior because his dad is also named Rex Jargon. So RJ Jr. Yeah, the idea for that I think just came from, like if you've read any other fantasy novels, they're always like saying weird things as they cast a spell or whatever, like, think of Cinderella or something, the fairy godmother saying bippity boppity boo or whatever, and then like something magical happens. And so I was like, oh, what do I want to do for magic words or something? And then I was like, well, I could just reverse things. So, like when Drazu does a spell, if you look at it, it's the word of what he's trying to do. Like he's going to make, I think there's one where he goes, lunch, and like poof, lunch just appears on the table, right? And it's all this delicious food.
Yeah.
And so the spell that he casts is the word lunch backwards. But then
Hmm.
once I started doing that, I was like, oh, what do I call the wizard? And then I was like, oh, I'll just call him Drazu. What do I call the dragon? And so I started reversing stuff and it became more and more fun. And so, like, the village is called Igaliv. And I just found all these different places and then mixing in some palindromes and stuff like that. So it's just fun, just like a fun way to play with language.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Another question I have is, how hard was it to like, how No Guard always like says stuff like that it has the first letter in it.
Uh huh.
Always, how hard was
Alliteration.
yeah, how hard was that to do? Just
It's
like
so
throughout all the
hard.
stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm doing a new story right now, and I just had a scene with him. And the way that I have to do it is, do you guys have a thesaurus in your house? Do you know what that is when I say thesaurus? So it's like you look up the word book, and it's like tome, volume. It comes up with like 20 different words that all
Yeah.
mean book. So what I do is I'll say like, let's say we had Nogard the dragon, and he wanted to say like, hello, Owen, how are you today? I will write what he's trying to say without alliteration. I just write like, hello, Owen, how are you today? Then on the same sheet of paper, I make a new speech bubble and I go, okay, well, I have to say Owen. So that's an O word. So now I'll like go to my dictionary and start flipping through O, and it would be like, how do you say hello without an H? How do you say like greetings or I can't do it right now
Yeah.
live on the podcast, but like
Gee.
that's the idea. So then you go through, so you'd look up the word hello in the thesaurus and you look for it, and maybe there's an O word or something, or you come up with some tricky way to do it. And then how are you? Maybe I've picked like the hardest one, but and sometimes this happens where you go, I just can't do that. I can't find an O word that means hello. So I'll say, I'll call you Guy. And then I could say, greetings, Guy, just like a generic term, or buddy, like a benevolent buddy or whatever, sort of some sort of greeting. So sometimes you have to change the word, and then you sort of get a grip on it, and you start getting the other words, and you start stacking up your B words. But sometimes you've probably noticed, as a close reader of Isle of Elsi, sometimes in a speech balloon, I need like two different words. You just can't do it. You run out of B
Yeah.
words.
It's
And
so
so it's
hard.
like the first half of the speech balloon is B words, and then it switches to S or something, and then I'll put like three S words in a row.
Yeah.
So hopefully readers like you forgive me for that, for not being pure.
Yeah.
But there's also a poem that inspired that, and I should know the name of this, but there's a poem that someone wrote once, and it has 26 lines, and each line is a letter of the alphabet, and it's fully alliterated. So the
Oh,
first line is A, the next one's B, and it
huh.
goes down and does the whole alphabet.
Dang.
And I remember reading that and just being like, oh my goodness. And that was really inspiring. Like, I wonder if I could do that. But it is challenging to write. It takes like three times as long to write every speech balloon for the dragon than it does for other characters, because Rex can walk in and say, hello, dragon, how are you today? But the dragon has to say, regards, Rex.
Yeah.
Read any, I don't know, great books or whatever? Like you have to kind of like figure it out with the alliteration. It's hard to do in my
Yeah.
head. I need like a piece of paper in front of me.
Yeah. Um, my another question I have is, so you know the dwarves that you made?
Uh-huh.
So, what gave you the inspiration to first of all make them like Car, and then also what gave you the inspiration to make all their civilization based around triangles?
Yeah, so in this book that we're talking about today, the third book, it's called RJ Jr. and the Underground Underground. And the big reveal of this story is that there's a whole dwarf civilization that's underneath Igalif, the village that we've been in the first two books. And so, yeah, I got into an idea of, we haven't gotten to them yet, but the elves are circles, the dwarves like triangles, and then humans like squares. And that's
Hmm.
just a fact. Like you and I are both sitting in rectangular rooms.
Mm-hmm.
You have like a shelf behind you that's all squares and rectangles. Like the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that's not rectangular behind you is your dad's drawing board, which is at like an angle. And same with me. I have a drawing board behind me that's at an angle. But like doorways are rectangles. So we love rectangles. And that comes from
Yeah.
like it's easier to cut rectangles. So I thought to make it visually different, like you want to feel when you're in the dwarf thing, anywhere you are, that it feels different. It doesn't feel like you're in the human world. And part of it is underground. So it has a different color palette. It's darker. Instead of blue skies, you're like in a cave at all times. But I think part of it was like stalactites and stalagmites, which is another new addition for this story, are sort of triangular. And so maybe that's in a cave, and then they sort of like as their culture develops, like, oh, we like this. And triangles are very strong,
Yeah.
so it's actually much stronger than a rectangle, like
Yeah, because they
structurally.
support each other.
Yeah,
That's
so like
that's like
a square can rack and sort of go leftwise. So even when you do have something rectangular, you usually have to add a cross brace to make it stronger. So then I thought, oh, that like strength, like pyramids, stone, there's sort of like this idea that it feels very different, whereas like humans might be more wood, rectangles, framing stuff out. So it's just trying to provide some contrast. And then later in a future book, we'll meet the elves, and their whole culture is about circles. And then there's some very magical stuff going on in this book, as you saw, where you have
Hmm.
a circle with a triangle inside it with a square inside it. And that's this sort of
Yeah.
symbol of the magical culture that used to exist and that Rex is going to kind of rediscover.
Yeah, it's cool. Nice. All right, I think I'll hand the earpods over to Dad again, and you can talk with him.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks so much for all your great questions, Owen. Have a great year in school.
No worries, you too. Have a great year.
Okay.
Here you
Oh, you got it, sir. So cool to connect with one of my oldest readers. And he started reading it with you guys when he was 3, which is amazing.
I was really taken aback when you said that the series started in 2016. It's been going for 10 years, almost 10 years at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I launched it
amazing.
2 weeks before my daughter was born. My first daughter
Wow.
was born. So it's been a long journey. Yeah. So when
Wow.
I'm like, how long have I been doing Isle of Elsi? I just look at her and I'm like, whatever your age is, that's how long I've been doing it. So 9 years right now.
That's incredible. Wow. Very cool. Well, I couldn't hear anything that you were saying with Owen, so I look forward to listening back to this. But
He did a
um,
great job. He had some really good questions.
yeah, I want to know all about the dwarves and the triangle significance. And speaking of that, you have a really diverse cast of characters in Isle of Elsi, from Randy Remarf and the Door Dilemma to these more gender fluid dwarves that you're bringing in, and that's sort of in the most recent storyline seeming to alert Sally, one of the younger characters, that this is a way that one can be in the world. You know, Sally is a working class tomboy type of girl,
Mhm.
and she sort of sees these dwarves and starts realizing these other paths that one could possibly take. So I think that is a really amazing thing that you accomplish in this huge world that you're building. I mean, this is like I don't know. Once in a while, I'll just sit back and think to myself, Alec is really creating this fully realized world. And you have been for 9 years now. 600 pages of comics. It's really an incredible feat. I'm not sure where the question is in that, but maybe you can talk to us a little bit
Yeah,
about
no, I mean,
your interest in diversifying the cast of characters within Isle of Elsi.
yeah, I think it's funny, and I might have the wrong number. I'm trying to do the math so I don't sound cooler than I am or something. Is it 600? Maybe it's 400. I'm trying to think if each book is a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's 600. Anyways, it's
It's
some
a
big,
bunch
I
of
hit some
hundreds.
big milestone
Yeah.
recently. But yeah, and I feel like I barely scratched the surface. I have so much more I want to do. And one of the ideas that's like, I don't know, like 3 more books away that we haven't even gotten to is like once Rex gets his hands on a wand and starts training to be a wizard and all this stuff, like I hope it's obvious it's heading in that direction. But one of the ideas that we're going to explore is sort of longevity, like wizards live longer than other people.
Hmm.
And so over the course of the book, we will see everyone that is currently in the story, like age, and some people will die, and Rex will kind of keep going. And so the more I thought about Sally, it just sort of that trajectory, that lifelong trajectory was very different. And I don't really see Sally as like a woman in the future. So, and part of this is probably like I work at the Center for Cartoon Studies, a very progressive institution, and like most of our student body is like LGBTQ plus IA. But obviously, I'm like a cisgendered straight white man. So it's like, how do I write that character? Or how do I sort of do that in an informed way? And so a number of years ago, one of my students was Maya Kobe at California College of the Arts when I taught there for a couple of years. And we just connected on like a very deep level. It was like almost our first class. It was like, wait a minute, we're both into fantasy comics and like sort of connected. And then we've stayed in touch since E graduated from that program. So I actually like hired Maya to be my sort of consultant on Sally's character. And so starting with this story, Maya and I met. And if you don't know, Maya created the book Genderqueer, which I recommend everyone read. It's just a really beautiful, gentle sort of exploration of gender and what it's like to be someone that isn't necessarily fitting into a binary of I'm male or I'm female. It's like, what if you're somewhere in between or something altogether different? And so, yes, there's a moment, and that's a very intentional thing. The the sort of cartoon language of the dwarfs is intentionally mushy. And one of my favorite fantasy comics is Castle Waiting by Linda Medley. I don't know if
Mm.
you've read that.
Yep.
Beautifully
Hmm.
crafted black and white comic. There's two great volumes out from Fantagraphics. Please track those down if you like fantasy. It's like so beautifully done. But there's this whole storyline in that where like all the female characters have beards. And I remember reading that in the early 2000s or something and just like almost having cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't understand this. It's like, it's very clearly a female character, but she's got a beard. And I remember just being sort of confused by that or whatever. And so I'm intentionally doing that with the dwarves. They have some very overt female characteristics. They have some very overt male characteristics. And it's sort of all jumbled up. Which I feel like is canon for dwarves. Like there's jokes about it in the Lord of the Rings movies or whatever, where they'll be like, oh, female dwarves are so ugly that you can't tell if it's a male or a female or something. And it's sort of done in a derogative, unkind way, I feel like. So this was sort of like, well, why don't I blur those lines? And then, like you said, a big part of this is reflecting my life experience. I grew up in a very sheltered community, like in the suburbs of Seattle. And it feels like a lot of ways my whole life has been like going to Oberlin College, which is very progressive, and meeting all sorts of people that I didn't go to high school with, moving to New York City and being exposed to like one of the most diverse places on the planet Earth. And so just sort of broadening horizons. And so I sort of want to do that for kids, for readers. And I think like the high watermark I try to set is that everyone should be able to see themselves in Isle of Elsi, whether you're a kid asking those same questions to yourself, or just cool, this person looks like me or is acting like me. So yeah, that's like a big moment. It's sort of they go down there and it's never sort of like, hey, what gender are you, dwarf? It's just sort of like readers will pick up on, oh, this like I hope the reader looks at a dwarf and goes, oh, this is confusing. Is it a boy or a girl? And then 20 pages in, the characters are they're locked in a jail cell. And Sally's sort of like, what are the dwarves? And the kids sort of naturally think about it. And then she sort of you have a moment that you picked up on where she's sort of reflecting, that's a big deal. That one panel has an arc that's going to go through the next like 10 books, hopefully to the end, where literally Rex is at Sally's deathbed talking to him, and
Mm.
how Sally's life has changed in those 80 years or whatever.
Mm.
So
Wow.
if I
Yeah.
can live long enough to do it.
So, yeah, I was gonna jump in and say not only is it cool for the sake of representation of people seeing themselves in your book, but it's also cool for teaching kids about things that they might not have known about. Like you said, for yourself, and I'll include myself in this, growing up kind of sheltered and learning about these in a way that's not talking down or preachy, or it's just sort of woven nicely into the story and feels very natural and makes for a really easy place to start talking about some of this stuff with your children. So anyway, I super appreciate all the care that you're taking with this, with sensitivity readers and creating this incredible world. So
Thanks.
again,
Yeah. And
kudos.
Maya's feedback was amazing because it's not, what would feel like just lip service and just really fake is if Sally's exposed to it, goes, well, guess what? I'm transgendered and tomorrow I'm a boy. And so I'm going to cut my hair and start wearing boy clothes and like it, snap of a finger and it happened or whatever. It's like, no, this is a huge life decision that you
Yeah.
have to do all this soul searching and it might take 10 years to figure out that that's what you need in your life or whatever. And so to me, that's one of the luxuries of a long comic series, of an ongoing web comic. This is the kind of thing you can do. Something like Gasoline Alley. Over 50 years, you can watch characters grow up and develop relationships and change and get jobs and, people die and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of world I want to build. And that's what I'm interested in is creating a series. So I can take my time with it and sort of drop breadcrumbs along the way and keep checking with Maya to make sure it feels authentic. And then hopefully that will be very interesting. And people that aren't reading it as closely as you are miss that panel. They just, oh, I don't know, they're just talking. Then suddenly 10 books from now they could go, oh my gosh, that started way back in book 3 and now I see this journey, and it could help people have more empathy for people that are going through that and be kinder.
Yeah, that's great. So I know that your hardcover collected editions typically have like a number of stories in them. And this one, there's a pretty long story that involved the dwarfs we've been talking about. Are there other shorter stories that you're including? Is there additional back matter? Like what else is going into this book that we should know about?
Yeah, usually what I thought I would do forever is have one big story that's about 100 pages and then two short stories. And I love bouncing around. You rattled off a couple, but I love bouncing the protagonist around so that you just like see the village and the world from a different point of view. And Sally and Rex are still there, but they're kind of like in the background. They are the supporting cast. For this one, it just got down to I finished this story. It's 113 pages. And then I scripted the next story, and it was 50 pages.
Wow.
And I draw a page a week when I'm posting my webcomic. And so that's a whole nother year. And it just felt like I have about 20 pages of bonus material here, which is just behind the scenes process, some of the stuff we were just talking about, recommended reading, stuff like that, that'll be in the back. And once you add those 20 pages in, the book's 136 pages, which feels like, especially at the price point I'm putting it at, 24.95, feels like a good deal. And why make the Isle of Elsi readers wait another year to then like release a book? So I thought I'll just release this, and then I think the next three stories are going to be pretty long. And so if they're each around 50 pages, then maybe book four is three short stories or medium length stories. And then the one after that's really big. So that again might be it. So I'm letting go of some of my preconceived dogmatic self-imposed rules so that I can just like put some books out and get them into hands before everyone grows up and loses interest or whatever.
So every hardcover does not have to be 192 pages exactly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's 192, 144, and then this one will be 136, but the next one might be higher again. So who knows?
Great, great. So we've been talking about this Kickstarter that you're doing. Is there any particular reward tier that you're particularly excited about that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I feel like you and I are in a Kickstarter reward tier feedback loop in a positive way. I feel like we've had conversations and I'll say something and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And then you'll make that a reward tier. And then I back all your Kickstarters. And then I look at some of your reward tiers and I'm like, that's a good idea. And so I'm doing back. Most of my reward tiers are just like trying to get the books into people's hands. So that's sort of the focus and trying to discount things to make that accessible, or if you buy all three books, making that less than buying them individually, stuff like that. So I think in the upper tiers, some of the things that'll be special is I'm going to take a feather out of your cap, or is a nice way to say it. I'm going to steal your idea, which is a
Do
less
it.
nice way to say it. Is I think I'm going to offer a thing for like $100. I will come visit your classroom virtually or your reading group if you want to get some friends together. I have a activity that I run. It's called Dice Designed Dragons from the Isle of Elsi activity book, where
Oh,
you
cool.
sort of roll some dice and you create a dragon. I can give a little process talk and then do Q&A. So I'm going to offer that for folks that want to do that. My wife, Claire Sanders, who's an amazing toy designer, has very generously offered to make some more. We have these things called the ites. They're stalactites or stalagmites, and they're
Uh-huh.
plush. So
Yeah.
she's going to make some of those. And then the big one that I've never done before that I'm going to do for this campaign is I'm actually going to sell the original art to the Isle of Elsi Adventures. So I serialize it in floppy comic books before I make the big book. And so I have these kind of big 11 by 17 hero images that sort of depict a really important moment from the stories. And so I will be selling those. I don't think I've ever sold original art.
Hmm.
I've donated some to a couple of different causes and stuff and given some away, but yeah, so those will be like $200 each, and there's nine of those. So we'll see if there's any interest in those.
Wow, that's exciting. So just out of curiosity, why having never sold original artwork before? Are you trying to keep everything until you die and then it is gifted to your kids and they sell it posthumously, or what's the idea there?
I think that's maybe a too generous of an assumption of anyone's interest in my work. But I don't know. It just maybe seems like a hassle, or just I don't know. This is I feel like where you're really good at stuff, and it's one of my failings is once I'm done with a comic, I like shove it in a drawer and move on to the next thing, and it's sort of like who cares? So I don't know. Maybe I could have had more money and lived a different life if I had been selling my originals as I go. But I think it's fascinating. Like one of the probably my biggest influence and one of my comics mentors was Aaron Renier. And one of his mentors was Craig Thompson. And so, as many people probably know from Craig Thompson interviews, he flips over every page when he finishes it and writes a diary entry that says, like, here's what's going on in my life right now as I'm working on this. And so, like, his stack of choose your book, space dumplings or blankets is like his diary. That's like what was going on in his life when he's done that. And so because of that, he's never sold the originals because there's personal information in there, and you're not just getting the piece of art, you're like exposing aspects of his life or his reflections on it. And so like Aaron inherited that and has done some weird stuff on the back of his originals. And I think also has very selectively sold stuff over the years. And so I sort of feel like I'm in that chain of like, well, whatever Aaron's doing is what is the right thing to do. But I've never done the diary thing, but I also have never sold originals. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. It's just like a weird impulse. I'm
Huh.
standing right in front of 216 pages of basewood, these giant, crazy 18 by 24 originals. Maybe someone would want one, but I don't know. It'd be a nightmare to ship, a nightmare to frame. I don't know. Anyways, I'm
Man.
gonna try it. And even now I don't have a lot of confidence. It's like, oh, I'm gonna make that a tier, but we'll see. And then it's like first come, first serve, right? Like if everyone wants cover number three, I'll be like, sorry, someone already got that one, so you're stuck with these other eight or whatever.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Do you
You're
sell
in
originals?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I have always thought to myself, I can't keep all these things, and if it's another way to monetize what I do, then I'm going to do that
Yep.
because I feel like you and I are in a similar cartoonist status where we
Uh-huh.
are not Art Spiegelman, we're not Chris Ware, we're not Emil Ferris, we're not, the upper echelon cartoonists who are going to command a lot of money for our work. It's
Mhm.
just a fact of life.
Yep.
But we do have work that people are interested in. And for my campaigns, I try to give people multiple tiers where they can get in at a very low level or something
Mhm.
medium or something high so that everybody is served. And one of those high tiers that I've done, like if you look at my A Hunter's Tale campaign, I
Mhm.
offered original artwork from all the pages. I just put everything out there from that book. And if you look at that campaign, and it's all public knowledge, it's all
Right.
archived on Kickstarter, every single page sold. And
Oh,
because
wow.
of that, if I did not offer that, I would have left literally thousands of dollars on the table.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that they're in good homes. I'm happy they're not taking up space in my office because I have precious little. And yeah, so and it helps the bank account and making the book too. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, that's all a win-win-win situation. If
Yeah.
I were Spiegelman or Ware or something, and this were actually like a retirement plan or a gift to my children, like maybe I'd think differently about it, but they're not going to be any of that. It would just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
things that
If
would go into the dumpster when I'm
Right,
gone.
like
So,
after I'm dead, and my kids are like, "Hey, we have all the Alec Longstreth originals." People are like, "Who?" It's
yeah.
like, "Good luck with that," or whatever. So yeah, I've probably already not struck while the iron was hot. But yeah, I don't know. I just have I think even running the Kickstarter, I just have a feeling of like, oh my goodness, this is going to be so much work. So the thought of, oh cool, I have however many it is, 400, 600 stack of original pages of Isle of Elsi. Yeah, I could sell them, but it's like, oh God, then I gotta get the packing materials and organize how to get people to pick their page and ship them out. It just is like, I'd rather spend that time drawing page 601 or 401 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I get that too. Logistics can be overwhelming. With that said, you've done a number of Kickstarters successfully as well. And so, do you have any tips as a creator for somebody who is going into a Kickstarter for, their first or second time? What have you learned along the way that you're like, that's something I'm definitely going to do again? Or I wish I never would have done that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a sort of fragile place. I'm actually very nervous about this Kickstarter, and I really appreciate you reaching out and offering to interview me so that we can spread the word to your listeners. It's incredibly cool of you. I feel like don't look too closely at what I'm doing because I'm maybe a case study of what not to do. I fully freaked out when all these social media platforms either went in political directions that I don't agree with, or said, we're all about AI now and we're going to mine all of your photographs and train it on this model that people can use. So within the last 3 years, I deleted all of my social media accounts, which is not what I would recommend if you're getting ready to start a social media campaign, right? Like trying to fund a thing online. And so been a really hard trade-off for me. It's been fantastic for my mental health, My phone like tracks how long I look at my phone. And so I was up to almost like 2 hours a day looking at social media or whatever I was doing. I'm now down to 15 minutes a day, which means I'm reading more, I'm drawing more, I'm giving more eye contact to my kids. Just like my life is better and I don't have to carry around this like second version of myself that exists in virtual space. But even as I was hitting delete, I was like, this is going to make my next Kickstarter so much harder. And I was like, that's the downside of this decision. And so here I am. I'm getting ready to launch this Kickstarter, or it's live now as you're listening to this. And that's a big worry because it feels like a big way that I funded stuff in the past was like by being on social media. Don't forget, my thing's going on right now. Please check it out. I'm pretty much only on Blue Sky right now. It's the only platform that I'm still on. And so I'm leaning more into actual, like in the mail, direct mail. Like, here is a letter from me that says, "Hi, you bought Isle of Elsi Book 2. Book 3 is out. Just so you know, here's the link, signed Alec Longstreth," or whatever. So I'm trying to connect to people more directly, and we'll see if that works. So that's like one aspect of it that's maybe a negative that I wouldn't recommend necessarily, like especially if you're launching your first thing is, I had 3,000 Twitter followers. And so that was not an insignificant amount of reach or whatever. And so deleting that is maybe a questionable choice. We'll see. If you're looking at this and you're like, oh, you're looking at the Kickstarter total going, he's not going to make it, then that would be proof positive that I made the wrong choice. But I would say the main tip that I recommend people is just like, you need to do a lot of research. Do not, and you know this as well, Ryan. It's not, oh, I'll do a Kickstarter. It'll launch next week. It's, you got to be thinking about this 3 months ahead of time because it is a lot of work generating the images, writing the campaign, filming the video, researching how much it's going to cost to print the stuff, to ship the stuff, how much do the boxes cost, how much does the tape cost? All these things sort of add up. And you don't get a chance with Kickstarter to go, hey, I miscalculated. I need another $1,000. Could everyone please chip in $2 more each or something? It's sort of a one-shot thing. So some like concrete examples I can give on Basewood. I calculated the shipping. Okay, it's going to cost this much per carton for the box. I need this much tape. It's going to cost this much to ship in the US, this much to Canada, this much to Mexico, this much overseas. I did all that. And then I launched my campaign, I can't remember, like midway through the year. The printing took so long that by the time I was actually shipping books, by the time I was actually taking a book, putting it in a carton, taping it up, and going down to the post office, the postal rates had increased. Like whatever that amount is, where they're like, oh, just kidding, forever stamps now 76 cents instead of 74 cents. Those 2 cents when you're shipping a book turns into 50 cents. And then when you're doing 50 cents times 500 books, suddenly, you're losing money. So you got to just really do your research. And on all my past campaigns, if you dig around in my campaign pages, I have a public accounting page where I list every penny that I spent on the project. And so you can see like, because I've seen people do this where they're like, yeah, and then I'll ship the books. And how much could that cost or whatever. Then your campaign does really good. You're sending out 300 books. Buying 300 boxes that are custom foldable to your book, that might cost $500 or something, and so that's like a thing where I feel like sometimes beginning people miss those calculations or like tape doesn't cost that much. I just go down and get a roll of tape. Yeah, but now you need 20 rolls of tape
Mhm.
because you're going to be doing that. So and then trying to research that stuff and do it ethically. If you're listening to this, please don't use Uline. They're an awful company. I use Eco Enclose for all of my stuff, which is all biodegradable, recyclable, eco-friendly products. But I don't know, stuff like that are sort of, I feel like the beginner's mistakes where you don't really think about that stuff. But I don't know. I almost feel like I should kick the same question back to you, Ryan. What are your tips? Because I feel like maybe I'm on the downswing and you're on the upswing with Kickstarter. It feels like everything you do is bigger and better and more successful.
Oh man. Well, one of the first things I tell creators who are new artists and they say, how can I grow my fan base? How can I grow my readership? Is to start an email list. And
Mm,
I hope that you have one of those. I think you
yep,
do.
yep.
And so, even if you don't have social media, which you were worried about, I have a feeling that your email list is going to come out in force for you. So I was lucky enough to have somebody tell me at the very start of my career when I had done like maybe a convention or two to say, hey, you should start an email list. And I remember thinking when I was, 20 something years old, oh, I don't know. That sounds salesy and schmarmy. I don't think that's something I want to do. And they're like, no,
Uh-huh.
you're going to a convention. People are coming up to your table. Just put out a piece of paper. You don't even have to say anything if you don't want to. Just allow them the opportunity if they want to.
Yeah, they
And then
grab the clipboard and just put the email in there. Yeah. Yeah.
and sure enough, to my surprise, people started writing their information down. And so now, every time I talk with somebody, if they buy a book or not at a convention table, I'll let them know, hey, I have this email list. I send it out every other month, just letting people know about new books coming out and convention appearances if you're interested. And I make this really like passive pitch. It's not pressury. They've either done the thing or not. And, it has worked out in my favor because without that email list, I'm convinced I would not have been able to produce my most recent book, which was big and crazy and
Yeah.
unreasonable and like it's the book of my dreams. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't
One
have been
bite at
able
a
to do it
time. Check it out.
I wouldn't have been able to do it without my email list. So that would be my first recommendation of what to do. And if I were to suggest anything to a first Kickstarter creator, what not to do, I would probably suggest not worrying about any sort of add-ons or stretch goals.
Yes.
Those are for later campaigns after you've got the first one under your belt. You might see other people doing it. It might look interesting, and you might get caught up in things in the campaign. Like my first campaign was on Indiegogo, and again, I had no idea what to expect. I still feel like I don't know what to expect, but I
Yeah.
really didn't know my first campaign. And I set this $3,000 goal to print my book. And oh my gosh, I hit the $3,000 goal. I was so excited and I really wanted to thank everybody and reward them. And I said, okay, well, now if we hit $4,500, everybody's going to get my next book for free. And I
Whoops.
remember
Yeah.
looking at this and like it got so close and it ended just shy of 4,500 bucks. And I remembered being bummed at the time,
Right. Like, oh, I
but
was going to do that cool push goal. Yeah.
but then afterward, I started doing the math a little more closely instead of just like being excited in the moment. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take all of this $4,400 for me to fulfill this book. And
Yeah. Because
had
you
we
didn't think
hit
about tape or postage going up or whatever. Yeah. All those sort of hidden costs. Yeah.
right, exactly. So, all that to say, first campaign, keep it simple. Making another stretch goal or another add on is not going to change your world. It's not going to change your campaign. Just rejoice in the fact that it's doing well if it is. And if
Yep.
it's not, just keep letting people know, hey, we just hit a new milestone. We're at 50%. I'm hoping by the end of the week we can get to 60% and then celebrate those milestones until you hit that fulfillment. But anyway, that would be my
Yeah.
thing to
Those are
do
both
and
great.
thing not to do for newbie Kickstarter
Yeah, I
folks.
mean, I think I saw some post the other day that was saying like we've all been sold this idea that social media really works for us and like has all this engagement or something. Because there was some big company that left social media. They had to delete their account and they're like, we're going to lose so much engagement. And then the proof was like, no, they didn't lose any engagement. And actually, that social media platform wasn't doing anything for them.
Hmm.
Mostly what it does is it works for itself and it
Yep.
generates ad dollars and all it wants to do is attract eyeballs. It's specifically designed to not have people click on it and exit and go look at something else. They want to keep you where you are.
So
And
true.
so that email list is really smart. And I do have an email list, and the engagement is always really interesting to me because it's high quality engagement instead of, like you're saying, someone's into your work, they want to know more, and they sign up. They volunteer to sign up, and you're not like, you got to sign up. It's just an organic thing where they're actually interested in your work. Because when I go to check it after I've sent out an email to my list, the average, like I use Survey Monkey or whatever it's called, or no, Survey Monkey is what I use for work. It's another
MailChimp?
Mailchimp is
Yep.
another monkey themed product. Mailchimp. Uh, they have this thing that's like the average open rate on an email that gets sent out to a list is like 15%. So they're saying you send it to 100 people, only 15 people actually open it, and mine's like 93 or something, and so it's like seven people didn't get it because it went into their spam folder or they just have too many emails or whatever. So it's like it's not the typical Oh, McDonald's is sending you a thing because you put your email in some receipt thing or something. It's like people are actually interested in this. But yeah, this campaign for me, because I don't have some of that internet presence that I used to have, really feels like it's going to be like, I almost feel like we've lost sight of this. It's really going to be a Kickstarter. It's going to
Mm.
be like, hey, Ryan, I need you to help me reach other people. And or otherwise, this is not going to happen. And you are kindly doing that today by letting me talk to your audience. But it's that kind of thing of like, hey, I need you, if you're into this, if you're one of those people on my mailing list, I need you to like find one other person and tell them about it and ask them to sign up. And that's how we'll do it, is through the crowd thing, because I just can't blast a message out to 3,000 people and hope that they see it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
just one other thing to your what not to do with the push goals. I couldn't agree more. And I've been to, whenever Kickstarter has like a comics event, I will attend that. I just had one with Mixum, which is the printer I'm using,
Mm.
and they were sort of talking about how these two sort of platforms integrate. And they said it. The official comics person at Kickstarter said, "Please don't do push goals
Mm.
because that's what bites people the most." And I remember a lifetime ago when I used to work as a carpenter, we'd estimate how much wood do we need, how long is it going to take, all this stuff. You'd do all the math. You'd figure out every 2x4 that you need, every sheet of plywood, and you'd say that's the number. And then you'd say, cool, now add 20% on top of that. And that's for the piece of wood that's out of square and you have to cut it off and go back and get another 2x4. That's for the carpenter who cuts the sheet of plywood in the wrong place and now it's wasted. And so you got to get another sheet. Like the stuff isn't perfect. Those postal rates do go up. You forgot about the tape or whatever. And so take whatever your number is. Maybe you don't put it on your campaign page, just put the real number on the thing. But internally you need to say like, and then I need 20% more than that to like actually bring this in and get the books into people's hands.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll even include that on my budget too. Like I include a 10% contingency portion of the budget so that if anything goes wrong, I got a little wiggle room in there. Yeah, I think that's a
Extra
great.
proofs,
Yep.
all kinds of things can go sideways. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, I want to be wary of your time. I really appreciate you spending all this time with me chatting today. But is there any closing thoughts that you want to share with my community that might incentivize them to come to the page? You've already said a bunch, like half price first hardcover book, 192 pages for $10. That's crazy, Alec. That's crazy, listeners.
Beat that,
Please go check that.
Scholastic.
Yeah. So, yeah, anything else you want to close with?
Yeah, just I hope anyone listening to this that loves fantasy stuff or wordplay, has a kid in their life in some regard that loves comics and just wants to put a high quality book in their hands. Please check it out and tell your friends. That's all I can ask. And I also just want to append to that. Things are rough right now. Going out and getting like pizza for my family, the sticker shock of like life right now is very hard. So also zero pressure. Even if you just forward the message to someone else with more financial flexibility right now, that's totally fine. And as Brian mentioned, it's all free. So my main thing, my main goal is not to make money. It's to like share my comics with the world. So you can always go to isleofelsi.com and just check it out for free. And hopefully that could be fun. Outside of the campaign, you can also get the ebooks for book one and book two for free. It's $0 plus. Just pay what you want. So you can also get those, read them on an iPad with a kid in your life so that you don't have to be like in front of a computer or whatever. But yeah, mostly I just want to say thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me on and to anybody that's made it this far through our interview.
You got it. And again, thank you for your time, Alec. I'll be there on day one for this campaign. Remember, listeners, link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ryan.